So, Slashinator made a video response to my previous video, and I want to go through and kind of deconstruct it a little bit because I see so much of myself in him, despite the fact that I was never as big a conspiracy theorist as him, but let's take a look at this. And, Slashinator, I hope you don't take any vitriol from any of this. This is just my honest attempt to, at least in a mildly entertaining way, point out that I think you're wrong.
Let's see where to start. Well, in his video, he addresses me and acts like he debunks the 9/11 conspiracy.
No, I don't act like I debunked it. I let you know that there are answers out there. I link to some in my description, and I specifically ask you to uphold your burden of proof, which you can't because the evidence suggests everything against the claims that the 9/11 Truth movement made. So I'm not debunking anything. I'm just asking you to please go out of your way to uphold your burden of proof and follow the scientific method of trying to disprove what you want to believe, and when you go out to try and do that, you'll find that you do.
Well, I just wanted to start off that I used to be a supporter of the government too.
Two? No. I reject your couching there. I do not support the government. I just don't disbelieve something that the government tells me when the evidence supports what they say. If the government happens to say that the sky is blue and Alex Jones says it's green, I don't go with Alex Jones.
I think one of the things that got me off of that started getting me towards being a conspiracy theorist was first listening to Maoist Rebel News.
Sorry, I'm trying not to laugh because Maoist Rebel News, if you watch The Skeptical Heretic, won't even admit to the simple fact that North Korea don't have cellular phones. And if you want a full explanation of that, then link down in the blowjob bar. So I don't exactly consider the guy to be any authority on these subjects. He's been kind of widely discredited. Which is true of everybody that you mention in this, by the way.
Which then led me to Alex Jones, and then led me to Jesse Ventura's show.
Alex Jones, again, there's a reason that he's the butt of a joke, because he's been so widely discredited, because so many of the things he says are batshit insane and just not true. And Jesse Ventura, the first video that I looked up that was debunking him and his show about conspiracy theories or whatever, first thing I found was, okay, lie, misrepresentation, lie, misunderstanding. Seems to be kind of par for the course what you find with conspiracy theorists. And by the way, anybody else who has any information on these things or can point me to any more sources, then please do. As a tangential note there, Agent of Doubt made a response to my previous video and let me know that there actually is a lot of information from scientific journals and such on the efficacy of cannabis in its more chemical forms being used to actually have effects on cancer. So I do still need to look into those, but yeah, I may have been very wrong about that, just like everything. And that's the point, like I mentioned, that you have to be willing to be wrong and go out of your way to investigate that. And you're quite obviously not willing to do that if you haven't even gone out of your way to look at the plethora of crap out there that debunks Alex Jones, Jesse Ventura, and Maoist Rebel News.
After all the things I've seen them expose, and I can no longer support the government. I now believe our government is as evil as any. In fact, our government is so evil that they're actually able to pretend they're good.
So if they seem to be good, they're bad, and if they're bad, then they're bad.
Unfortunately, there's so many people that are still, how do I say this, asleep. There's still a lot of people that are blind to what their government really is.
You know, that just reminds me of one of my favorite pictures I've ever seen online. Just little stick figures on the train, and all of them have the same thought bubble of, look at all these sheep. I'm the only one who's awake. Everyone else is asleep. No one realizes the truth. I'm the only one who knows the truth. I'm sorry, but this just, to me, it kind of smacks of arrogance a little bit. Everyone else is asleep, but you're not. And yeah, I agree that a lot of people are undereducated or flat out uneducated in a lot of ways. That doesn't mean that they're asleep to the evils of the government. One of the issues that is most consistently agreed upon in this country is that we need to address government corruption. So if you think that the government is doing all these evil things and it turned out that they weren't, then that wouldn't mean that they were all asleep, just that they don't agree with you on what the evils of the government are.
Most people think that the soldiers fight for our freedom, the police are heroes, all the laws are good.
Find me one person who says all the laws are good. Find me one person who believes that all police are good, except for fellow police officers or people who have police officers in their families.
After what I've been through with the law, and after all the stuff I've seen, all the conspiracies I've seen exposed by Jesse Ventura, Alex Jones, Maoist Rebel News, and even Michael Moore, I wouldn't put it past our government to do anything. I'll believe any conspiracy theory now.
And there you have the problem. Do you not see the circular logic in that? You were taken in by deceitful conspiracy theories based on no evidence or bunk evidence or misrepresentations or flat-out lies, and then because of that, you will now believe all conspiracy theories. You see how the cycle perpetuates itself there. This is why I specifically suggest that you break the cycle by going out of your way to try and disprove every last one of those sources you have. Because it won't be that hard for you to do if you decide to be more objective.
Because I know that our government is not made up of gods. They're made up of evil people.
Who pretends that Congress is Jesus Krispies over here, dude? They have a 9% approval rating. What are you talking about?
They're made up of Illuminati members and Freemasons.
Ow. Ugh. I'm sorry, but at this point, this is what you sound like to me.
I don't want you to know what I know. There are things that they don't want you to know. Nobody wants you to know, but I know. I know that they don't want you to know. And they know that I know. They know that I know that they don't want you to know, but I know what they know, and no. I recently got an email asking me who I voted for in the last election. As if it matters. Let me give you a little illustration of why it doesn't matter whether or not you voted.
I'm Barack Obama. You should vote for me. I'm John McCain. You should vote for me. We're totally different. We're totally different candidates. You should vote for me. You should vote for me.
Do you get it? Do you understand? It's the same shadow government puppet master running the whole damn show. It makes no difference, you stupid prick. So I saw this video, and the video questioned whether or not aliens had built the pyramids. Well, what a ridiculous freaking question. Of course, aliens did not build the pyramids. They got their human slaves to do it. Freaking duh. Well, who told you this in the first place? That's right. The same people that told you that we landed on the moon. Do I even need to go into that?
Come on!
And now you know just a little more of the truth.
By the way, go check out Spaz Fox down at the Blowjob Bar. He's awesome.
All the explanations from the conspiracy theorists, all of Alex and Jesse's explanations for different events make a lot more sense than any of the stuff the government says.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense that Building 7 was blown up by controlled demolition instead of more debris hitting it than we initially thought, and fires taking place inside because of huge fuel tanks that existed in there to run generators, and the combination of different factors coming together for the thing collapsing. As Evidence once put it in one of his videos, if you heard a crash in your closet and you immediately intuited that maybe there's an animal in there that knocked something over, and you open the door and you see stuff all over the floor, you don't see an animal anywhere. You don't see any evidence that one might have gotten out of there, since you don't see it in there, like a hole in the wall. And you look up at the shelf this stuff fell off of, and it's already close to the edge and could easily fall itself. You can either maintain what you intuited, what you guessed, that there was an animal that had somehow slipped out the door when you were opening it, or that natural forces took place and a combination of factors, including gravity and friction and things like this, came together to allow it to fall. Which one are you going to believe? The one the evidence suggests, hopefully. And at this point, you are suggesting that we believe it was the animal that's apparently invisible.
Especially about 9/11, man, with all the things that were exposed in Fahrenheit 9/11.
A documentary. A documentary is your evidence next to the actual evidence. This is a problem. And this is also something that happened with me previously when I would believe in these kinds of things, is, oh, well, this documentary exposes the truth. No, it doesn't. You watch documentaries like this for long enough, and you have to eventually come to the realization of how much they misrepresent and lie, usually to support their own narrative. Michael Moore's Sicko. I generally agree with the narrative because I like universal health care, but the movie paints the U.S. healthcare system as hell and universal health care as heaven. And the fact is that each has pros and cons. You can't be so absolutist about it and say one's right and the other's just wrong. And very often, that's the polarizing effect you get with documentaries like this. It's meant to influence your opinion and make you agree with the person who's making it, not giving you the information so that you can come up with your own opinion. And so the information is slanted to support them. God forbid they actually give people a chance to make up their own fucking mind based on the actual facts. And that is where you're getting your information from.
I do believe that 9/11 was a conspiracy, and it just makes too much sense.
It just makes too much sense. Okay? Then let's look at how good intuition is. Suppose you're on a game show and you're given the choice of 3 doors. Behind one door is a car, behind the others, goats. You pick a door, say, number 1, and the host, who knows what's behind the doors, opens another door, say, number 3, which has a goat. He then says to you, do you want to pick door number 2? Is it to your advantage to switch your choice? This is called the Monty Hall problem. Now, the intuitive answer, of course, is no. Obviously, because of the fact that if you choose one or the other, 1 or 2, it doesn't make a difference because your choice is a 50-50 chance. I'll link this down below so that you can know why your intuition is flat wrong on this one. And that's just a single example of how no, it just makes sense, doesn't cut it. Like how people say that gay marriage will ruin the institution of marriage. Well, that makes sense to me, so it must be true. No, it's not. That's a bad reason to believe in something. Oh, it makes sense to me. It doesn't matter if it makes sense to you. It matters if it makes sense. Oh, well, that makes sense to me because I want to believe it. That's not how you come up with the truth.
I just want to ask you, Varmint Coyote, and all the other people out there who hate conspiracy theorists, what is your motive for hating conspiracy theories?
My reason for disliking conspiracy theories is because they are inherently counterintuitive according to Occam's razor. Among competing hypotheses, the one that makes the fewest new assumptions should be selected. Of course, you have to understand what a scientific theory is and how we're talking about new assumptions and how a theory already has so many established facts. But because it's inherent to a conspiracy for there to be a large number of factors, variables, and people involved, means that it's usually not the best thing to select from the offset. That's just a problem with conspiracy theories in basis. Not to mention the fact that it's nothing but assumptions most of the time, and completely rejecting what the evidence actually states, because we can't trust the government's evidence. Yeah, you know, when you hate something, it's really easy to see everything it does as wrong. So when you hate the government because, in your case, because of shit that happened with you with the police apparently, and you transpose that hatred onto the government, then suddenly it is very easy to see everything that they do is wrong.
Because of how backwards our whole system is, I just believe every law has an ulterior motive.
Why? Because of how backwards everything is. What a very inspecific non-answer.
An issue that you've gone over that I'll be going over sometime is like age of consent. Like I'm led to believe by my own government, by teachers and politicians, that those laws were there to protect children. But if they're there to protect children, why are you locking them up in prison and torturing them?
So, in a broad context, the emergence of age of consent laws was the concept of childhood focused on development and growth. And eventually they put it towards 18 because of the already existing benchmarks for things like entering into contracts or owning property. And because there's now a pathway from school to prison, this somehow makes it so that those laws had an ulterior motive. This makes no sense. I tend to think that you need to understand what you're talking about before you talk about it, and this is again a big part of this issue. It's something that I used to be very guilty of, and am still in many ways to this day, and am trying to work on. Opening my big fucking mouth when I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm trying to become more educated, and that's why I talk about few things, and I specifically go out of my way to research stuff before I talk about it when I want to. You can't just go, oh, that makes sense to me, so it must be true. Doesn't work that way.
I don't know exactly what the ulterior motive behind those laws are.
Exactly.
But I'm guessing
exactly.
It's to act as an excuse to take away our freedoms.
Why?
And as a measure of population control.
What? Sir, I'm going to stop it there because this is just too dense at this point, but I hope that I have made my point clear by now. You want to believe it, therefore it must be true. It makes sense to you, therefore it must be better than what the facts suggest. You prioritize your interpretation of the facts as you have them misrepresented to you by other people, accept their narrative instead of creating your own. This is a big problem that a lot of people have, is not coming up with arguments with their own set of references in their own framework. It's one reason why so much discussion that goes on today seems to be so claptrap parroted stuff. There are few people who come up with more independent ideas based on their own interpretation of actual facts. Many people these days, especially in America, are more prone to being told what their lives should be, what they should believe, and why. Or, well, actually, not even asking the question of why, which is a big problem too. And again, like I say, I don't want you to take any vitriol from this, but God damn it, dude. Please, stop just accepting what people say without looking into it yourself. That's why I tell people not to do the same thing with me in my video about role models, linked below. I hope you can understand where it is I'm coming from, because I definitely see where it is you're coming from. And that's why I can say the things I do. Long days and pleasant nights.
It's amazing to me how, in the age of Google, there are still so many people who are willing to believe the dumbest fucking things that they could easily find out are wrong simply by taking 10 seconds to do a Google search. Like every now and then you'll see some shit on Facebook about how Facebook is gonna start charging people for membership, and that you should share this Facebook status to let Facebook know that you will not stand for it. And of course, a few hours later, if that gets passed around enough, Facebook will issue a statement saying, no, we're not charging for membership and we're never going to charge for membership, making everybody who shared that shit look like a jackass. And what's really depressing is that the people who spread that stuff around could have saved themselves a lot of embarrassment if they had just taken a few seconds to go to Google and type in, will Facebook be charging for membership? And it's precisely this kind of we gotta fight the man kind of rumor that exploits the most irritating type of gullibility. It's what I like to call gullible skepticism. That's when people believe it when somebody tells them that they should be skeptical about something for which there is tons of evidence because of reasons for which there is no evidence. Take for instance this Kevin Trudeau motherfucker in his book, Natural Cures They Don't Want You to Know About. He basically argues that most of medical science and the massive amounts of evidence that they've accumulated are all lies told to you by the medical industry to make money. And that instead of believing all of the evidence for conventional cures, you should take the cures that he advocates for which he presents zero good evidence. Then there are the global warming denialists. If you go to an article about global warming on the website of Skeptic Magazine or one of the other skeptical organizations that believes in global warming, you will see a comment section filled with people who are enraged at the idea that an organization that calls itself skeptical would believe in global warming. These people believe that global warming is obviously a hoax, despite the fact that the vast majority of climate scientists believe in it, because clearly all of these scientists are part of a massive government conspiracy to promote their statist political agenda. So if you believe in global warming, something for which there is massive amounts of evidence and just as massive a consensus among climate experts, then you're not a real skeptic. But believing in a giant government conspiracy involving 95% of the world's climate scientists, oh, that's genuine skepticism right there.